Why does she think about you at night? Not during the busy hours, not when she's surrounded by people. Distractions and noise, but in the silence when the lights are off and her thoughts have no place to hide. That's when you come back. Not because you tried to stay on her mind, but because of how you made her feel, safe, respected, seen. You didn't chase. You didn't beg. You simply showed up with presence and walked away with dignity. That's what lingers. In this video, we're going to uncover the subtle, powerful reasons why you remain in her thoughts long after the words stopped, and how the calm, grounded energy of a stoic man leaves a deeper imprint than passion ever could. Let's find out. The quiet hour reveals the truth. Number 1. The quiet hour reveals the truth. At night, distractions fade, and that's when her real emotions surface. The noise of the day kept her mind occupied, but in the stillness, it's you. She thinks about, a stoic man leaves a lasting imprint not through noise but through presence. And that presence echoes loudest in silence. You see, during the day she might laugh, scroll, work, talk to others, all those little things that create the illusion of peace. But peace isn't what she feels when she's alone. Because when the world gets quiet, when her phone stops buzzing, when the lights dim and there's nothing left to distract her, that's when the truth catches up. She remembers how calm you were, how you didn't overreact, how you didn't beg for her attention, even when she pulled away. That quiet strength. It wasn't weakness, it was self-control, it was you choosing not to chase chaos. And in that moment of reflection, she starts to realize not every man brings peace, and even fewer become the place where her mind quietly returns when she's alone. This is what the Stoics meant by mastering the self. You didn't need her to validate your worth. You didn't need to fight to be heard. You simply existed as a grounded man, unshaken and clear in your values. And now, while others fade with the fading light, your impact lingers. So if you ever wonder whether she thinks about, you know this. It's not during the noise that she remembers you. It's in the silence, the late hours, the moments when her own thoughts refuse to let her rest. That's when your presence speaks the loudest. That's when she feels the weight of what was lost. Not because you reminded her, but because the quiet hour revealed the truth. Before we move to the next point, I want you to take a moment and think about this. Have you ever realized just how loud your absence can become in someone else's silence? If that line hits home, or if this idea of being remembered, not for your noise but for your presence, resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experience in the comments or simply drop this sentence. The quiet hour always tells the truth. Let's see how many of you have felt that echo. She remembers the calm, not the chaos. Number 2. She remembers the calm, not the chaos. It's not the drama she replays. It's the way you made her feel safe in the storm. When she's overwhelmed, she remembers your stillness. The way you didn't react, didn't escalate. A stoic man doesn't feed the fire. He grounds it, and that memory becomes a refuge in her restless mind. You see, chaos fades. The loud words, the emotional explosions, the heated moments, they blur together with time. But what stays etched in her memory is the calm. The moment when everything felt like it was falling apart and you didn't. She remembers the way you breathed slowly while she spiraled. The way you listened, really listened without trying to control or fix. You didn't throw her emotions back at her. You didn't retreat or lash out. You stood firm, not with coldness, but with quiet presence. And in that moment she felt something rare, safe, held, anchored. Stoicism isn't about being numb, it's about being rooted. The way a tree stands tall during a storm, not because the wind doesn't blow, but because the roots run deep. That's what she felt with you. Not a man trying to win an argument, not someone who needed to prove a point, but someone who had mastered himself, and by doing so became someone she could trust, even if she couldn't always say it out loud. So now, when her world feels noisy again, when new people bring more flash than depth, she doesn't miss the fireworks, she misses the stillness. The way you created peace without asking for credit. That kind of calm leaves an imprint, and not many can replicate it. You didn't make her feel excited in a chaotic way. You made her feel safe in a soulful way. And trust me, that's the kind of memory that lingers. Let others bring noise. You just keep being the calm. That's what she'll never. You left without needing to be chased, forget. Number 3, you left without needing to be chased. You didn't beg, you didn't plead. You walked away with dignity, and now she's not haunted by your words, but by your absence. That kind of self-respect is rare, and what's rare stays unforgettable. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about things." She's now judging your silence differently. At first, maybe she thought you were just like the rest. Just another man who would eventually come running back apologizing for things that weren't even his fault. Asking for another chance, willing to shrink just to stay close. But you didn't. You left, not to punish her, not to play a game, but because your peace mattered more than convincing someone to value you. And that hits different. You see, a man who knows his worth doesn't need a dramatic exit. He doesn't need to slam doors or send a long message explaining everything. He just detaches silently, calmly, like a stoic walking through a storm. Not avoiding it, but not letting it shake him either. He trusts that whatever is meant to stay, stays without force, and whatever leaves creates space for something more aligned. That kind of presence is unsettling in the best way. It leaves her with questions. Why didn't he chase me? Did he stop caring? Or did he finally realize I wasn't treating him right? These aren't just thoughts. They're echoes. Echoes that show up late at night in the quiet when pride can't drown out the truth anymore. You didn't walk away because you were weak. You walked away because you were strong enough not to fight for someone who kept making you feel replaceable. And now, ironically, that very strength, the one she mistook for indifference, is what's pulling at her thoughts the most. That's the beauty of stoic self-respect. It doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it just walks and leaves a silence. She never expected to miss this much. And now the question lingers in her heart. Not why did you leave, but why didn't I stop him when I had the chance? Number 4, you were her. You were her emotional mirror. Emotional mirror. You reflected a version of her she admired. When she was with you, she felt elevated, inspired, grounded. Now, in your absence, she misses not just you, but how she felt around you. The stoic man doesn't just occupy space, he uplifts it. You didn't force her to be better. You didn't preach or push. You simply were calm in chaos, steady in storms, present without pressure. And that quiet presence, it made her feel safe enough to lower her guard to show parts of herself. Even she wasn't sure how to handle around you. She saw a more centered, more open, more radiant version of herself. That's what a true emotional mirror does. It doesn't distort. It doesn't judge. It reflects back strength, grace, potential. Maybe you never realized the impact you had, but trust me, she did. She might have acted distant or thought she needed something else. But now, away from your stillness, everything feels a bit more unsettled. The energy she once called too calm is the very energy she now longs for, because the man who's anchored in himself becomes the anchor for others. Seneca once said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." She did. And now that you're gone, she feels the difference. Not just in her life, but in her emotional state. You were her reminder of who she could be when loved without judgment and seen without masks. That's not easy to forget. And maybe, right now, she doesn't reach out. Maybe pride keeps her quiet. But make no mistake, she remembers the way you made her feel. Not with grand gestures, but with your quiet strength. That's the stoic impact. Not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever realized you were someone's emotional mirror only after they walked away? Or maybe you're starting to understand the quiet power you once carried, the presence that spoke louder than words. Let's reflect on it together. Drop your thoughts in the comments, or just leave this sentence if it resonates. Real peace doesn't need to speak, it just is. Your insight might help someone else see their own strength a little more clearly. She misses the stability you brought. Number 5, she misses the stability you brought. She may have craved excitement once, but now she misses your consistency. You didn't chase highs. You were steady, predictable in a world that feels anything but. At night, when emotions run high, she remembers the man who didn't. She thinks back to how you handled life, not by reacting to every little change, but by showing up the same way every day. That kind of presence is rare. You didn't make promises you couldn't keep. You didn't play games. You didn't feed her chaos. You gave her calm. And maybe back then she mistook that calm for something boring. She thought stability was less thrilling than drama, but now she sees what real peace looks like, and she misses it. You see, the Stoic man doesn't ride emotional roller coasters just to feel alive. He chooses inner discipline over outer stimulation. Like Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You knew this. So when things got messy, when she was overwhelmed, anxious, confused, you didn't mirror that chaos. You became the ground beneath it, the rock she leaned on without even realizing it. Now you're gone. That silence feels different, not because you're punishing her, but because she's starting to recognize what she lost. Not just a man, but a source of emotional gravity, the kind of man who could walk into a storm and not flinch. And the truth is, she may find louder, flashier, more unpredictable men, but none of them will offer the same calm center you once gave so effortlessly. She doesn't just miss you. She misses what she became when you were around, safe, collected, grounded. And that kind of presence, it doesn't fade easily, it echoes, especially when everything else feels. She's wondering if you've moved on. Unstable, number 6. She's wondering if you've moved on. Curiosity is powerful, especially when it's mixed with regret. She lies in bed wondering, does he think about me? A Stoic man doesn't post to provoke or speak to be seen. He detaches with purpose. And that mystery, it drives her thoughts deeper. Because here's what most men do. They chase closure. They explain themselves. They try to be understood. But not you. You accepted what was. And without drama or declarations, you let her go. And now that very silence is echoing louder than any words you could have said. She checks your social media, expecting to read between the lines, hoping to find something that gives her a clue. But there's nothing. No breadcrumbs, just stillness. That's when the mind starts to wander. Is he seeing someone? Did he ever really care? Has he replaced me? Or did he finally realize his worth? You see, Stoicism teaches that we only control our actions, not how others perceive us. And ironically, that very control, that quiet composure, it unsettles her because she expected you to fall apart. She didn't expect you to rise in silence. Maybe she thought your absence would be temporary, that eventually you'd reach out, but instead you focused on your life, your growth, your peace. And now she's left wrestling with the unknown. That's the cost of underestimating a man who walks away with dignity, not to punish her, but to protect himself. And deep down, she knows, if you have moved on, you won't announce it. She'll feel it in your stillness, in your glow, in the way her presence no longer interrupts your. You responded, not reacted, peace. Number 7, you responded, not reacted. You didn't let emotions control you. You chose your words, you stayed calm when she tested you. That kind of restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. And now, late at night, she compares every man to that level of emotional leadership. Because here's the thing. Anyone can react. Anyone can snap back, raise their voice, or try to prove a point. But it takes a different kind of man to pause, breathe, and respond with intention. That pause, that's where power lives. She remembers the moment she tried to provoke you. Not because she was cruel, but because she wanted to feel something. And instead of losing yourself in the storm, you stood firm. You didn't ignore her, but you didn't indulge the drama either. You responded with clarity, not confusion. And that changed everything. A Stoic man doesn't see emotional control as bottling things up. He sees it as freedom. Freedom from being owned by impulse. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You understood that, you saw through the moment, and didn't get swept away by it. And now that moment is frozen in her mind, not because you said something flashy, but because you didn't flinch. She remembers the steadiness in your tone, the way your energy didn't shift, even when hers did. She remembers it because it felt rare, and what's rare becomes the standard. That's what stays with her when the noise fades. Not your reaction, but your response." If that part resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How have you handled moments where reacting felt easier than responding? Or maybe you've seen the power of calm leadership in someone else. Either way, drop your reflections below or just leave this in the comments. True strength speaks softly. Let's move on to the next point because the ripple effect of that emotional discipline goes deeper than you think. Number 8. Your presence was a standard. You didn't try to impress her. You just lived by your code, your values, your principles. That's why you're hard to forget. She's not missing attention. She's missing alignment. And that's something the Stoic man offers without even trying. You see, in a world where most people bend to fit in, you stood firm. You didn't shift your beliefs just to please her. You didn't abandon your boundaries to win affection. You walk through the relationship as you are grounded, composed, intentional. That quiet strength, it spoke louder than words. Think back. Maybe you never gave grand speeches. Maybe you weren't overly emotional, but your consistency, that's what set the tone. The way you handled conflict without blaming. The way you showed up on time, not just physically, but emotionally. You weren't chaotic, you were steady, and that steadiness became her reference point, her compass. Now when she's out there dealing with men who say the right things but don't live them, guess who she compares them to? You. Not because you were perfect, but because you were principled. That's the thing about Stoicism. It doesn't ask for perfection. It demands presence, clarity, and discipline. You didn't perform, you embodied. And that left a deeper mark than charm ever could. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And that's what you did. You became her quiet reminder of what it feels like to be around someone who doesn't need the spotlight because his character speaks for itself. And now, in moments of doubt, she remembers you. Not for what you said, but for how you showed up. So if you're wondering why she still thinks about you, it's because your presence wasn't just comfort. It was a standard one that now everything else falls short of number 9. She regrets taking your peace for granted. Peace for granted. You were the calm she didn't appreciate. Now she's surrounded by noise, drama, and instability. And in the quiet hours, she replays every moment she mistook your patience for passivity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. You lived this." And now it haunts her, because your peace wasn't just silence, it was a presence. It was the way you didn't match her chaos with more chaos, the way you didn't argue to win. You simply understood, and that understanding became rare. She thought peace meant boring. She thought your steadiness was a lack of fire. But now she's with people who raise their voices instead of raising their standards. Men who react instead of reflect. And suddenly, the man who once sat quietly in the storm, unshaken, is the one she misses the most. That's the thing about peace. People don't notice it until it's gone. Until the room that once felt safe now feels loud. Until the person who once brought clarity is no longer there to soften the noise. A Stoic man doesn't need to prove himself through volume. He leads through stillness, through control, through a discipline that doesn't need applause. And now she's beginning to understand what she let go of. Not just a man, but a sanctuary. A space where her soul could breathe without walking on eggshells. She regrets it, not because you've changed, but because she finally sees the value in the way you didn't. You weren't passive, you were powerful quietly, and she feels that you gave her space to be herself. Now, number 10, you gave her space to be herself. You didn't try to control her, you let her be. Listened without fixing, loved without clinging. That emotional freedom, it's rare. Now that it's gone, she realizes how valuable it was. A Stoic doesn't possess people. He respects their freedom. And that's exactly what you did. You weren't constantly questioning where she was, who she was talking to, or what she was doing. You didn't try to mold her into someone who would fit your preferences. Instead, you made room for her to unfold naturally, to be who she truly was, not who you wanted her to be. You showed her something few men do. That love isn't about control, it's about presence. That trust doesn't mean surveillance, it means peace. Epictetus said, "He who is free is the one who lives as he wishes, neither constrained nor compelled." And you embodied that mindset, not just for yourself, but you extended it to her. You didn't cling because you understood that the tighter you hold something, the more it wants to slip away. So you held her gently, with respect, with patience, with openness. And now, in your absence, the contrast is sharp. She may be with someone who texts back fast but doesn't listen deeply, who shows attention but not acceptance. And suddenly, your quiet strength, your ability to step back and still be steady, that stands out more than ever. Because when a man gives a woman space to breathe, to grow to feel fully herself, he becomes the air she didn't know she needed until it was gone. She may not admit it out loud, but deep down she misses that freedom, that rare emotional safety that came not from what you did, but from who you were. And that kind of man, he doesn't chase validation, he becomes it. If that resonated with you, even just a little, take a moment to reflect, because not every man is strong enough to love with open hands, and not every woman realizes what she had until the silence shows her. Have you ever given someone space only to later feel them drawn back to you? Not because you chased, but because you didn't. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below sharing your experience, or simply write, "Real love doesn't cling." Let's keep the conversation going. Your story might help someone else find clarity. You were the stillness she didn't know she needed too. Number 11. You were the stillness she didn't know she needed. Some men bring noise. You brought stillness. And now she feels the contrast. At night, when the world is quiet, your calm becomes a loud memory. You didn't try to be unforgettable, but by simply being grounded, you became exactly that. When her emotions swirled like a storm, you didn't add to the chaos. You became the eye of it. Your presence wasn't overwhelming, it was grounding. She may not have said it, but deep down she felt safe around you in a way she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't what you said, it was how you carried yourself. You weren't trying to fix her mood or control her path. You just were steady, present, unshaken. And that kind of stillness, it stays with a person. Now that you're gone, she's surrounded by people who react quickly, talk endlessly, and chase validation. But your silence wasn't empty. It was full of intention. Like the stoic man who chooses his words carefully and lets his actions speak. You didn't drown her with affection. You gave her space to breathe, and ironically, it's that space, that peace that she now misses the most. Stillness isn't passive, it's powerful. Especially in a world where everyone wants to be loud, you weren't just the calm in her chaos. You were the contrast that made her realize what true emotional safety feels like. And now that she's tasted it, nothing else quite compares. The truth is being conclusion. Unforgettable doesn't come from being loud, dramatic, or constantly available. It comes from how you made her feel when you weren't even trying. When you walked away without resentment, when you didn't react to her distance, when you held your peace instead of seeking validation. That's what keeps her up at night. She may never say it out loud, but in the quiet, she feels the weight of your absence. And that's the quiet strength of a man who doesn't need to be remembered, yet somehow always is. If this message resonates with you, let me know in the comments, or just type, "She feels it in the silence." And don't forget to like this video and check out the ones on screen for more Stoic insights on love loss and emotional power. I'll see you in the next one.